Good afternoon, everyone. In today's video, there's three different things that we'll cover. First, we'll start off by taking a look at the charts of Microsoft to try and figure out what's next, see if there's any trade ideas that we can form in Microsoft. Second, we'll take a look at a trade in PAGS, which I find to be a bullish short squeeze candidate. We'll take a look at the reasons why. And then finally, third, we'll take a look at some of the stocks that triggered today via the Stock Volatility Box to again just go over some of the trades and be prepared for tomorrow. So starting with Microsoft, we've been looking at Microsoft almost this entire move up, but let's start first with a broad level view and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of these fib levels. So starting off with the broad level view, using our swing high to swing low, we've currently made the 1272. And if we take a look at what's really happened after we touch that 1272 right here, if I pull out the trendline tool, from that point all the way up till today, that's been right around 43 days of not really a whole lot of movement, right? We see the stock has moved right around 1.69%, which wouldn't be all that surprised if we lose some of that gain as well and come right back to zero. All this to say, for 43 days, Microsoft has done a whole lot of nothing outside of really just catch its breath, really get a chance to recover, and it's bounced several times into our fib zones here. But before we talk about that, to me, Microsoft looks like it's getting ready to make a move towards its 1618 extension. That's the 226.57 zone, and that to me just seems like a natural next target. Now, if we take a look at why, I'll zoom in a little bit closer here. So the last time we talked about Microsoft was when we had this dip right here. This was the level we were looking at, our fib levels. Right, if I highlight this just so it stands out just a little bit more. From that point, we saw Microsoft held. Then we bounced from there, not once, but twice, right? That happened two times. Then we broke it. Once we broke it, we recaptured that level, really chopped around sideways before we had the TikTok news, which led to a gap up. And now most recently, we filled that gap. Now that gap fill also happens to overlap with a few different fib areas, all of which have been this entire move up, which I'll show you in just a second. But really that area takes us to right around 203.75 all the way down to right around that 203 zone, with the last layer taking us below 198.82, which again gives you a nice place to put a stop below that 200 zone if you were interested in this potential trade. Now, an entry as close to this fib line would be essentially the most ideal. Off of the 1 hour chart, we've already seen that edge signal that's really given us the entry, right? That came right here after that bounce from our fib levels. We saw the edge signal. For those of you that are a bit more conservative, that's where we use either the daily or the 4 hour chart. All of which to say, if these fib levels hold, then I would expect a move towards 226.57. That's the 1618. Now, if we take a look at what all of these different zones are, those are all of the different times that we've really made a move swing high to swing low on this entire ride up in Microsoft. So at some point, yes, that ride will end. We don't really know when. It's not our job to try and predict that. But to me, I'm just going to trade these levels, the same retracement zone, until it stops working. Where does it stop working? That's a break below 200, at which point this trend would essentially be broken, and we'd now be looking at Microsoft at least more as a chop trade or if not bearish. Now, if we take a look at the next stock that we talked about, that was PAGS right here. Now, the reason why PAGS came on our radar was off of the squeeze signal right here. The squeeze signal then gave us essentially the indication that, hey, is there some sort of opportunity here? Because we see a bullish squeeze signal, we see a bullish market pulse, and if I load in our short interest scanner with PAGS right here, we'll see that PAGS is currently at 9.97% short interest, which again, we typically look at double digits. This is close enough, right? You're off by 0.03. And so that's where if you did see a burst of short interest moves essentially coming in, if I load in the volume, there's something interesting here as well. So let's load in the volume average. Click OK there. So off the volume average, past 2 days, we've seen above average volume in PAGS, right? Essentially just a little bit of buying pressure. We also bounced from our fib levels one more time. That fib level was our very first decline move once we essentially had this recovery from the COVID period. And now from that point, if we take a look at this level extrapolated from our current low, that takes us to 44.82, all of which looks like a fairly nice target to try and see if we can get a move up to really what ends up being that nice round number of 45. Now above that, if we continue to make a move up, that would be 50, but it wouldn't be all that surprising if we again hit 45, take a pause here, maybe pull back a little bit before then trying to make a move towards 50. So that's what, to me, PAGS looks interesting. And for those of you that are wondering what the squeeze looks like, we can load that in as well, right? If we load in the squeeze, that's where our squeeze currently so far looks like it's positioned to fire on a bullish scale. Now, finally, let's take a look at some of the stock volatility box trades that triggered for today. So we'll get rid of the squeeze, we'll get rid of the volume, come back to just our clean charts here. And now let's load in some of our trades. So let's start off with Autodesk first. If we come into a 1 minute chart on Autodesk, we have both our aggressive and conservative clouds plotted here. We had the aggressive one, which triggered the trade. We had price action breach our volatility box edges. We're then looking for an edge signal. We had two, along with plenty of opportunity to get in. We had our first opportunity right here, and we started to make a move down. Then we had Autodesk really retest our same zone. So if you missed that first entry, this is your second opportunity to get back in. And after that point, we went on to hit our T1, which is this gray dash line. After T1, moved our stop from outside of the clouds to break even. That stop was never touched, and we just continued to drift down lower for the rest of the day. I believe this was a max move of right around 2.3-ish or so percent, 2.37. So a fairly nice move in Autodesk, but it is an expensive stock. That's where, for those of you that are looking for alternatives to trying to short a $238 stock, that's where we've talked about this. It's the idea of using shorter dated options, so the 14th August expiry, and using the out of the money option. So that's where our target here at the point of entry was right around 241. So let's try and find options close to 241, which took us to the 240. At that moment, out of the money, where the 240s are what looked interesting. Again, fairly low volume though, so to keep that in mind, right? 55 to and 73 open interest, so nothing too exciting from that scale. Again, shorting the actual stock helps you prevent any of these liquidity issues. Now, if we switch over to a chart of Datadog was interesting because it triggered twice. So I have just our aggressive clouds here, and we'll go through this step by step. But we had our first entry triggered when we had price action breach our clouds. And we're looking for the edge signal, got the edge signal right here. That was then our entry to get in, and price action really just continued to go outside of the clouds. At this point, this was a stop out in Datadog. So this was the first trade in Datadog. At this point, we know the aggressive models aren't being held, and so we switch over to our conservative models. So let me go ahead and pull that up, hide the aggressive, and that's where off of the conservative model, if I zoom out, you should already notice just a quick eye test that this did a much better job of containing price action. Now, if I zoom in right here, you'll notice that for Datadog, we had, again, a very similar thing happen, right? We had our breach, which took us into the clouds, then looking for an edge signal, got the edge signal, had price action really make a move towards the target, fell just a tad bit short before then coming right back up, retesting. Now this retest was only a brim, and in the case of Datadog, for example, this is a hard to borrow stock, HTB, and that's where using put starts to give you an alternative to try and play this potential move. And a put also then gives you the flexibility to play off of our conservative levels to see if you get some sort of a deeper correction here, right? Do we really see that this entire rally into Datadog, which again happened much quicker than I think most people would have expected, do we see that a little bit of that is sold off? And that's what we saw with Datadog today from our volatility box levels. Now, if I move down the line, the last stock we'll talk about is GMAB. Let's go ahead and load back in our aggressive clouds as well here. We'll hide the conservative, so we're on our most aggressive clouds. Now, if we take a look at GMAB, something interesting here, right? We had price action breach our volatility box clouds. We then saw the edge signal, but in that same candle that we saw the edge signal, we already hit the target. Now, in some of the other earlier charts, we talked about the idea of a retest. A second retest usually ends up working, but that third retest doesn't really always work. In the case of this equity, if we take a look to see what happened, that second retest, we made a move. We actually gapped up higher. It doesn't look all that comfortable from a stock chart perspective, but let's just study the idea of retest here. We touched back into the clouds here. The second retest, chopped around sideways, hit the target, had the third retest right here, and this one went outside of the clouds. And this is the idea that I really wanted to illustrate with GMAB. The trade itself wasn't all that attractive, but it's again the idea that if you are looking to be a bit more aggressive, that second retest still more times than not gives you the target. Although the probability of the second retest usually tends to go down. But the third retest right here is where really we just see more times than not we go outside of the clouds. All right, so to recap today, we talked about Microsoft. I'll load back in the daily chart off of Microsoft. But Microsoft, the levels that were interesting, 203.75 all the way down to that 200-ish area, 198.82 is the fib zone. Then the next one was PAGS. PAGS, that's where a short interest squeeze, looking to try and play a move into 44.82, and an entry as close to 34.02 would be really a good entry, right? And so that's where, for those of you that are looking to try and find ways to manage your risk, I would have to give it at least outside of this previous zone to try and play this move into 44.82. So you may be looking at something like options for a defined risk trade there, something that gives you the ability to try and not get shaken out of this trade. And then finally, we discussed trades, our volatility box trades in Autodesk, right? 1 minute chart here. We'll load back in the aggressive just for the quick final recap here. Zoom out, right? We talked about Autodesk here, which ended up being a fairly nice trade. Datadog, in which we had two different sets of entries off of our aggressive along with the conservative. And then finally, GMAB to talk about the idea of retests. All right, so I hope this recap helps for all of our Stock Volatility Box members. Also for those of you that are just trading stocks to try and find some potential trades in things like Microsoft and PAGS. All right, take care, everyone. Good luck trading tomorrow, and we'll see you in the next update.